So in today's session, we'll try to see that how VAT is to be determined or calculated when the goods is local goods, a kind of general supplies, not the imported goods. Say for example, the question is how can we come up with the value of taxable goods or taxable services. So the example will be given first, then we'll try to understand that how can we come up with the value from the price and other information. For example, you are more familiar with buying internet pack from the mobile service operator. So we like to know that how much value the internet service provider or your wireless telecommunication company can derive from your purchase. Say for example, you have purchased a 100 taka pack, whatever for the for the internet bundle. So say that internet bundle price is 100 taka. So most commonly you see that there is a star mark and it has been mentioned that including VAT and SD. And the VAT rate is 15%, then supplementary duty is 10%, and there is another charge, that is supplementary charge, that is 1%. Supplementary charge, most probably, what can I recall? Am I correct that these charges are applied on your purchase of internet pack? Can anyone confirm that you are aware that these charges are applied on your purchase of internet pack? I'm just wanting to know, are you aware that these charges are applied on the purchase of internet? By when you purchase the internet at this price, for example, you have to face this in Bangladesh. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the question? The question is how much of this value or of this price is received by service providing company. So one way to come up with this is to see that to apply the VAT fraction. So say for example, if the price is 100 taka, or you are paying 100 taka, and they are saying that this price is inclusive of VAT, SD, and supplementary charge. In that case, if we want to see that what is the value excluding all this, in that case we can have an idea that how much of this 100 taka will be derived by the company. So first of all, if we apply the VAT fraction, VAT fraction is 15%. That means this 100 taka, on this 100 taka, if you apply 115, if you apply 115, it is inclusive of VAT. Now we are trying to go backward. So how much is 100%? If we apply the VAT fraction, because it is 115%, how much is VAT? Can you use this for calculation?
Sir, 13.04.
13.04. And if we subtract, this VAT 13.04, we get how much? 84.96, is it?
Sir, 86.96.
86.96. Fine. So this, what we have calculated here, we have calculated the VAT amount. And now this 86.96 is excluding VAT, but it is inclusive of supplementary duty and supplementary charge. I mean, it is, first of all, we need to check the supplementary duty. So supplementary duty is 10%. So in that case, this is 110% value. Now, if it is the 110% value, we can come up with calculation of how much is supplementary duty. So supplementary duty is this amount. Can we come up with this calculation?
Sir, 7.91.
7.91. So we get VAT of 13.04, SD of 7.91, then another charge is remaining, supplementary charge. So from 86.96, if we subtract 7.91, how much is there? 79 point something. $79.05.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we need to check the supplementary charge fraction. So 79.45, this is now 101%. 101. And here we apply 1. How much it is now?
0.78. 78.
0.78. Okay. Now you see, if I try to mark okay, 0.78. Can you sum up these three?
21.73.
21.73. Okay. Now if we subtract 7.78 from this one, 79.05, we get 78.23.
35.
35. Okay. Is it okay?
No, sir. 78.27 হওয়ার কথা।
275, 78.28. Okay. Now, how 78.28 actually has come? This one, 100 minus the tax which have been collected in the form of VAT, SD, and supplementary charge, this 21.73, we get this 78.28. So what is the answer? How much of this price the company gets? 78.28. And you see how much percentage is gone to, how much of this percentage has gone to the tax authority? Is it 15%? Is it 25%, or 26%, or it is approximately 22%? If you just think of this, take it as a base. And if a customer pays 100 taka, how much he pays to the tax authority, how much he pays to the company? He pays 78.28% of his purchase price to the company, and 21.73% to the
NBI.
NBR. Okay. Now, do you have any idea how much uh, average price of 1 GB internet pack in Bangladesh? I'm not asking for any quality. I'm just asking for, do you have the idea that how much is average price?
স্যার 32 টাকা।
32. It's your pack. I have asked about the average.
স্যার এরকমই 30 1 GB।
Okay. Average
3
is
টাকা
59. Average is 59. You will see that I'll try to share a comparison of the 1 GB internet cost across different countries, and price of internet is 59 taka for 1 GB in our country, and it is not as cheap. It is not as expensive compared to many developed countries. In developed countries, it is much more expensive. But in some developing countries, you may see some values are comparable, like you can compare with India, Vietnam. In that case, it is comparable. But the the argument is that these prices are not comparable because the services are not comparable. The services are not comparable. Say we claim that we have 4G, so you have a good experience in last 1 year that how much or how a strong 4G coverage the company has been, or the companies have been able to set up in across the country. But in United Kingdom, when I used to live for more than 6 months in last year and the year before the last year, I didn't see 4G very available there, but I see that 3G is super fast. So in some areas it is 3G, 4G is covered, but in most of the areas and 3G the speed is constant and there is no fluctuation. But we see at the same point of time or at the same place, we can see 4G, 3G, 2G together. Have you experienced it in the same place? In the same place, we see that there are good degree of fluctuation. Okay, so let's talk about that when there are transfer between two associated parties. Transfer of what? Transfer of taxable goods or taxable supplies. What will happen? So in that case, for example, can you recall that I have written 100 taka? 100 taka for what? 100 taka I have written to see that, to calculate or to see that how much is the value of taxable supply. So if other things okay, this should be the fair market value. If the company charges 78 point something, then this other VAT, SD, as supplementary charges are applicable. What should be the fair value? This 100
100.
taka should be the
Yes, sir.
fair value. Okay. So this fair value has a good definition in your accounting text. In text also fair value is used, because by manipulating fair value, the tax amount can be manipulated. So there are so many uh, explanations devoted for understanding the fair value. So one problem arises when there is a transfer of the taxable supply between associated parties. For example, if I like to give you the example, say there are a square toiletries and there is a square hospital. So this square hospital uses many products of square textile, square toiletries. So square toiletries, when they deliver goods to square hospital, do you believe that they sell or transfer the goods at a price at which they sell goods to other parties, say for example, Shomorita Hospital? Do you think that the prices will be same?
No, sir.
The prices will not be same. So the thing is that when the buyer and the seller are not associated parties, I mean in this case, they are not associated parties, what we can believe. In that case, they are supplying goods to them, and their supply is not expected to be influenced by any relation because they do not have any relation. In that case, the price at which they are selling the goods, that price should be the fair market price for tax assessment purpose. But the problem is here when they sell the same good to the associated parties. So when they are selling goods, for example, this company Square Square Toiletries to the Square Hospital, as they are associated parties, uh, but if it is found that they are the price at which they are transferring the supplies from this company to this company differs from the earlier determined price, but difference is not 10%. Difference is not more than 10%. Difference is within 10%. Just think of if they sell the good at 100 taka to Shomorita, and the good is, for example, selling to Scar Hospital at 98 taka, we can see that the difference is not more than 10%. Difference is within 10%. What do you think?
Yes, sir.
Difference is within 10%. In that case, the price at which they are selling should be considered at fair market price. There is no problem. But if the difference exceeds 10%, if the difference exceeds 10%, fair market price should be determined based on the methods provided by the tax authority or NBR in our country. So the methods are comparative method, deductive, computed, holistic, or objective approximation method. We do not like to discuss on the methods. Those methods are clearly explained in the VAT and Tax Act 2012. So we just want to know that in which case the price will be equal to fair market price, in which case the price will not be equal to fair market price. Rather, we have to take the help of the methods to calculate the fair market price. So when there will be this problem, in that case, we may have to use several methods, and the averaging approach will be used to see that what should be the fair market price. So next one, what we like to know, that sometimes you see that for promotion purpose, you might have received some goods as a customer at free of cost from the manufacturer or from the supplier. So the question is, will the VAT be applied on those goods for which no consideration has been taken? These goods have been distributed at free of cost. No consideration has been taken. So in that case, what do you think, that as a manufacturer or as a supplier, should you provide any VAT on the goods for which you have received no consideration? So the rule is that maximum 20,000 can be distributed as free or as sample, and on this 20,000 no VAT will be charged. But for example, a company has distributed approximately 100,000 taka of goods to the customers at free of cost for no consideration. In that case, on how much goods, how much worth of goods the company should be liable to pay VAT? You see,
80,000.
customer has received these goods at free of cost. You see, the customer has no burden here. But who will be responsible here? The supplier will be responsible here. So on 80,000 taka goods, the VAT should be provided. And another thing what we like to address, it is for the case where the manufacturer is not receiving any consideration. And when you are a manufacturer, before going to the process of manufacturing, there should be a declaration. Before going to the manufacturing process, there should be a declaration. Declaration for what? Declaration for the manufacturing you are wanting to begin, and what will be manufactured, and what materials will be used. These things are required. This form will be required. I'm just opening this one. So this one is Mushok 4.3 or VAT 4.3. Okay. So can you see what have been written here, or I should zoom? So what the manufacturer has to disclose before going to the manufacturing process, manufacturer should disclose the production materials in this form where it is mentioned that it is input output coefficient. So how much input is provided and how much output you are expected to generate. So what are those things? The serial number, the HS code of goods. Are you familiar with the HS code? Have you heard about anything this term HS code before attending this class? That there is a term HS code in the VAT learning. Yes, no. You will be very familiar with this when you will be working in a business, or you will be working for a business company, or you will be working for customs, and or you will be working as an assistant tax commissioner. It will be a very uh, usable term for you. Any idea? So there are millions of goods in the world, millions of goods. So it is difficult to identify the goods by their name. So based on the nature of the goods are categorized into different classes, different classifications. So based on that classification, these VAT, these customs duties are imposed so that it gets simpler. Otherwise, just think of if there are millions of goods and you want to specify that what will be the customs duty or what will be the VAT for these millions of goods, how lengthy the VAT Act will be. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It will be very lengthy. Are you watching my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in that case, this HS code has been developed to simplify the list of goods in the form of some classification. So HS is shortly harmonized system, but in brief, it is harmonized commodity description and coding system. If you have attended the VAT class, it is very general knowledge you need to know so that you can share later. Let me write it down for you. Harmonized, what I have said, can you recall? Harmonized
System.
commodity description and coding system. So when we are saying HS code, we are just taking H here, we are taking S from here. But it's actually, what does it mean? Harmonized commodity description and coding system. Have we got the purpose of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it is usually used in the customs, and there is an organization, World Customs Organization, which is the body of all customs authority of all countries, or the listed countries. Most of the countries are members there, and they commonly use this to share the information among them. That you see that there is another problem. For example, uh, a good can have different name in different countries, but if we follow the HS code will remain same across the countries. There will not be difference. Okay. So here we are. So we need to describe the HS code here, and we need to describe the brand. We need what nature of the product, and what will be the unit. Is it in ton or million, kilo, whatever it is, and what materials, raw materials will be used, and how much of these materials will be have to be discarded, will not be able to use, and what will be the value addition by you, and any comment. And there are some additional attachment you may need to provide. So this declaration, why you need to provide this declaration, you need to provide for what? You need to provide for to the VAT divisional officer if you are a if you have the registration for VAT. Now the next question is when we will pay the VAT as a company. So time of payment of VAT on taxable supply. So usually when the common understanding is that usually when the transaction is made. So when the transaction is made, you may need to check that which one is the earliest. So the earliest one will be, the earliest event will be the benchmark that on that date you need to, or after from that date the remaining due days will be calculated. Let me give you an example. So for example, in transaction, the supply of goods may be happen first, but you have not received the consideration. When you are supplying goods, you may already have in issued a invoice where the tax amount or VAT amount has been charged, or you have received consideration or the revenue or the payment partly. But sometimes the goods can be for what purpose? For personal purpose or for your own personal use, not for selling to other parties. So when it is personal use, in that case, it is likely that these things may not happen. These things may not happen when it is personal use. So we need to check which one is the earliest. So say, for example, tax invoice has been given to the buyer on say, for example, February 15. In that case, this VAT will be payable on this date, February 15. But if there are some goods where, say, for example, we pay gas bill every month. We pay gas bill in every month because the supply is not for one-time supply. Supply is periodical supply or monthly supply this way. In that case, say for example, in this month, this is February, you have collected bill including VAT for this month. You have received bill when? In February for the January. In that case, the VAT what you have collected will become payable to the NBR within 60 days from this date. For example, customer has paid the bill to you on 25th February. In that case, on which date it will become overdue? on which date the VAT payable will become overdue. Have you got the question? It is very simple. You just need to add how many days you need to apply. 60 days. It is in which case when the supply of goods and services are not done at once but periodical. Now the next category is on special supplies, how VAT will be imposed or whether VAT will be imposed. Okay, are you watching my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, somehow the connection got disconnected. Okay, so next one is on special supplies. So what kind of special supplies? It has been said that say company A has a business and company B has a business. Company B has bought the business of company A, but why company B has bought company A? Not for disposing company A, but with the intention that company A will continue its business as going concern, but now its ownership is under the company B. In that case, no VAT will be imposed. But if it is the case that company B has acquired company B for resolving the assets of company A and company A has been demolished, there is nothing left. In that case, VAT will be imposed on the transaction. This kind of a special kind of transaction. So another part is, say for example, company A has different parts for toiletries, for chemicals, for textile, for automobiles. So what company has done, company A has discarded this not demolished, company A has sold out this division, and this division, it is capable of continuing its own business separately. In that case, this unit will be considered as a separate business entity, and there will be no VAT imposed on this transaction. But the thing is that when some company or some person is selling his business or entity as a going concern, and this facility will only be available, what we just have mentioned, if they provide either seller or buyer. What they should do, they should provide a bank guarantee that if there are any tax due of this which has been sold out or which is going to be sold out, all payable taxes, all arrears will be cleared, and this should be given with the bank guarantee. And they have to submit an application form which is VAT 4.2. In that case, just let me open the 4.2 from here, VAT form. What is happening? One company is trying to sell his business. I see no VAT 4.2 here. It may be available from here. Okay, I can't show you the form here as it is not available there. Okay, so what they should do before making the transaction, they should make an application to the tax officer before 15 days before. 15 days before, they have to submit an application that they are going to sell this business or they are going to make a transaction of this business, and the commission will be responsible for issuing clearance that yes, you can sell the business as going concern to this from A to B, and commission will provide this clearance within 7 days from the application. After checking the documents what have been submitted by either A or B. So the documents may contain the financial statements, the statements of all properties, and statements of registration, license, then what has happened to the ownership, what will be the changes in ownership, this document. And after the on special supplies and on general supplies, we want to see that in case of on special supplies, we have seen the first category when there will be a transfer of ongoing business. Now the second category. In second category, uh, what will happen to the supply of prepaid telecommunication products and services, which is very common nowadays. Okay. Now, you see sometimes you get a discount from the telecommunication service provider. You get discount. Do you get discount?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me
Sometimes.
an example what kind of discount you get?
স্যার দ্য ডিসকাউন্ট ওয়াজ দ্যাট যে আগে আমি 1 জিবি কিনতাম 100 মানে সাপোজ 100 টাকায়, এখন সেটা আমাকে দিচ্ছে সে 60 টাকাতে। সো মাত্র মানে 3 দিনের অফার থাকে, 3 দিনের মধ্যে আমি যদি অ্যাভেল করতে পারি তাহলে আই গট দ্য অফার, এরকম টাইপ ডিসকাউন্ট।
Okay. The thing is that tax shall be applied not on the discounted price, but the price inclusive of the discount. Okay. And another thing is that uh, sometimes, or not sometimes, which is usual, how you get the recharge. You do online recharge or offline recharge. So there are some companies or there are some individual businesses involved in this. It is an intermediary who does this recharge, or you recharge directly from the company.
স্যার বেসিক্যালি তো ইন্টারভিউতে থাকে।
Yeah, so both are possible. Sometimes you recharge directly from company, sometimes you recharge from intermediaries. Okay, so the thing is that when the consideration or the supply has been made to the intermediaries by the company, in that case no VAT, or it will not be considered as a taxable supply. Say for example, GP has given say 10,000 taka balance to a particular individual who is in deal of recharging business. Now this 10,000 what GP has transferred, this supply of what, this 10,000 recharge balance GP has transferred to the intermediary. And what this intermediary will do, this intermediary will transfer this balance to the customers. Now the balance what has been transferred from GP to this recharge intermediary or intermediary, this transaction will not be a taxable transaction because VAT has already been paid by GP. And what GP will do, GP will collect it from customers. GP will collect it from customers by selling the balance to them through intermediary. The thing is that the intermediary will not be responsible, or the supply what intermediary is receiving is not a taxable supply. So sometimes we see that company directly, so sometimes what company do, company gives some in-kind benefits to the employer. So let me take different example that will be more convenient to you. Are you familiar that there will be VAT applicable on the airfare ticket, air ticket? There are VAT. Is it? Any idea? Is there any VAT on the air ticket?
স্যার থাকতে পারে বাট আইডিয়া নাই।
Idea নাই. Okay. A rail ticket? Is there any VAT?
স্যার রেল টিকেটে সম্ভবত থাকে না,
Okay.
কজ
There are
রেল
some train which are express train.
ইয়েস স্যার।
There are some train which are express train. Okay. Now on this express train, if you buy the seat of AC seat, you buy air conditioned seat. In that case, VAT will be imposed. Okay. So say for example, this airline rail company, say in our country, Bangladesh Railway, has provided free tickets, say, to their employees. In that case, that in-kind benefit what the company is giving to the employees shall be a taxable supply. Though the company is receiving no consideration from the employees for supplying these railway tickets to their employees, in their VAT should be imposed, and it should be considered as a taxable supply, and the railway will be responsible for paying this VAT. Have you got it? Okay. Sometimes we buy goods at installment, where the payment or consideration is made at installment. So in that case, the taxes shall be collected in different payment period. I mean, you have a, for example, 3 payment period. 1, 2, 3. and there may be situation that tax will be collected in every point of time when the payment is made. But usually what is done in installment purchase, there is uh, some initial price you need to pay with no choice. In that case, one component of the price is all taxes what is applied. So usually tax is not collected in this way, but tax can be collected in this way when the transaction is kind of lay-by agreement or lay-by sales. Sometimes we see that a transaction has been initiated and some consideration has been taken, but for some reason the transaction has been cancelled. But the company now claiming that I will not give you the advance payment of this percentage to you. Have you faced this kind of transaction? Are you familiar with e-valley?
Yes, sir.
What happens to e-valley? Anyone, any customer in our class, e-valley customer? We
স্যার
have only
বেসিক্যালি ওরা তো স্যার মানে ফার্স্টে মানে আমার থেকে একটা পেমেন্ট নেয়, নেওয়ার পর তারা ওটা দিয়ে বিজনেস করে আমাকে আমার যে প্রোডাক্ট আমি কিনতে চাই সেটা আমাকে খুব কম দামে তারা দেয়।
okay. So for some reason, after waiting for long months, you now are wanting to cancel the transaction. Is there any penalty?
হ্যাঁ, পেনাল্টিস রাখে স্যার একটু।
There is a penalty. So the thing is that what we just like to conclude here, that is in case of cancelled transaction, the portion what has been collected by the company, that will be or tax will be charged on the amount of consideration what has already been taken by the company and what will not be refunded to the customer. Okay, so these things what we have seen, how VAT is imposed in different type of transactions on import, on general supplies, in case of prepaid telecommunication service, when then the benefits payable to the employees, then in case of cancelled transaction. Ishmam, you want to say, ask anything?
ইয়েস স্যার।
Yes.
স্যার যেহেতু ক্যান্সেল ট্রানজেকশনে পেনাল্টি দিতে হয়, তাহলে তো স্যার এটা প্রত্যেকটা কোম্পানির জন্য একটা ফিক্সড থাকে না? মানে সাপোজ আমার যদি ভ্যাট, এসডি, এসসি ফিক্সড থাকে, মানে সরকার থেকে ফিক্সড করে দেয়া, তো সেক্ষেত্রে তো সবাই স্যার সেম অ্যামাউন্টে পেনাল্টি মানে দেয় না?
The thing is that like in this way, for example, the product price is 100 taka, but company has received 10 taka. So company cannot claim that as I have received 10 taka, I have received the full value. That's why the VAT, SD or other taxes which are applicable on 100 taka, I will not pay that amount. Tax authority is saying that the amount 10 taka what you have collected, apply the tax on this and give that amount, give that fraction to me. Am I clear?
ইয়েস স্যার।
That is the way.
Okay.
So there is no fixation here, but the percentage is according to the VAT Act, but the condition is such that one cannot avoid the tax payment by saying that because the transaction has been cancelled, That's why no tax should be charged. Okay. Now I have skipped the input tax credit 30.8, but the idea is very interesting and we need to know it, but we are skipping it for exam purpose. That is, we knew it in the very beginning of the VAT chapter that when you are collecting the output VAT, you will have the advantage that if the VAT rate is 15%, not the reduced rate, what can you do? You can collect the VAT, sorry, you can collect the VAT from the output VAT, what you have paid when you are buying the input. You can make an adjustment. So that is known as input tax credit. That is known as input tax credit. I'm just sharing the concept. I'm not going in detail. So the thing is that we need uh, to have the advantage of receiving the input tax credit. One person needs to comply with certain conditions. Those conditions, one of the critical condition is that output VAT rate should be 15%. The output VAT rate cannot be different from 15%. Different means usually less than. VAT rate is not more than 15%, less than 15%. In that case, the input tax credit will not be applicable. There are some other conditions you may go through if you feel interest, but we are skipping it for our term purpose. Now we like to see the withholding VAT in the 30.9 section, which is comparable with the tax deducted at source, what we learned in the income tax topic. Okay, so some authorities have been made accountable for deducting VAT at source. So it is kind of deducting VAT at source. I mean, when you are making transaction at initial or before giving payment, the VAT shall be charged, and NGOs, then your bank, insurance company, government entities, these institutions are responsible for charging VAT at source, so which we are terming as withholding VAT. So one thing we like to understand that uh, this VAT deduction at source, VAT deduction at source will not be applicable if the VAT rate, if the VAT rate is not 15%. If the VAT rate is not 15%, in that case, this VAT deduction at source will not be applicable. Let me give you some example. Say, in some cases, VAT rate is 5%. In that case, this is this applicable? It cannot be applied. Okay. Some cases, can you recall that I mentioned that VAT on newspaper is not based on the value, but based on the quantity of paper? Can you recall? Can you recall that newspaper VAT is based on the quantity, not based on the, which is also known as package VAT, uh, which is kind of unique package VAT. So in that case, no specific percentage is applicable, but a specific quantity amount. Or sometimes you will see that VAT is said that for this 1 liter good, 50 taka will be VAT. In that case, the VAT deduction at source will not be applicable. It will only be applicable in which case? When the VAT rate is only 15%. So sometimes we import goods we import a service, VAT is usually applicable on local goods. But if VAT is imposed on the imported service, in that case, what will happen? In that case, the bank and financial institution through which the payment will be made will be responsible for making the withholding VAT payment. Say, for example, you want to make a payment for what? For taking subscription in Netflix. Have you seen that there is a VAT charged by in this subscription payment? Have you seen it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In that case, who will be responsible? The bank or financial institution through which the customer is making payment. That bank and financial institution will make the customer responsible for paying VAT, and the bank and financial institution will be responsible for collecting the VAT. So when you will go to the payment site for paying this subscription for Netflix, you will see that they are charging VAT from you. So how it has been possible? Who is administering this system? The bank and financial institution portal. Using the system, customer is paying payment, and customer will also pay VAT, which will be collected by the uh, financial bank or financial institution. And the question is that this withholding VAT has been collected by the responsible authorities. Can they take keep this taka or keep this money with themselves? The answer is no, because this is the money to be transferable to the end bearer. So in that case, it is said that uh, say for example, today is which date? March 20. Say for example, an entity has withheld a specific, say, 20 million VAT today from their transaction. In that case, this entity will be responsible for clearing this VAT payment within 15 working days. From which date? The date on which they have collected the withholding VAT. Have you got the rule? How many days you are getting to clear the payment? To clear the payment, you are getting how many days? 15 working days. Okay. Now, can you recall that I showed you my tax certificate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you will clear the withholding VAT payment, you will be provided the certificate, VAT certificate. So this certificate will be issued 3 copies. One copy will be maintained in the VAT circle office, and second copy will be provided to you as a supplier. Third copy will be kept by the issuing authority for 5 years, and you are a supplier, and if you fail to do so, that you have not been able to clear the payment within 15 working days, 2% interest per month shall be applied on the due amount. So that is comparable with the TDS also. TDS cannot be kept by the authority who is taking this TDS or who is collecting this TDS. Okay. Now, On the page number 501 page of your text, you will see several lists of items for which 5%, 10% output VATs are applicable. But before that, I like to show you that in the VAT and SD Act, there are third schedule where the list of goods have been made clear that on which goods what percentage of VAT will be applicable. This is the VAT Act 2012. I'm not clear that it has been finalized or it is yet uh, to be finalized. Okay. So there are third schedule, but uh, it is first. I probably didn't see the third schedule here. That is unfortunate. I do not know why. Because third schedule contains the list of goods and the percentage of VAT which is applicable. Because you see these are not of VAT, these are of supplementary charge or supplementary duty. Okay. So from the text you can follow, say for example, for internet service provider, for jewelry, the 5% VAT is applied. And for English medium school, ride sharing, 5% VAT. And in case of non-AC hotel and restaurant, construction firm, amusement park and theme park, 7% VAT, 7.5% VAT is applicable. And there are respective HS code for each of these service, and 10% output VAT is applicable in case of cinema hall, printing press, auctioning firm, then service, security, repairs and services, these things. So now we like to move forward to 30.11, supplementary duty. You are very familiar with the supplementary duty because it has recently been imposed on the mobile phone use, and mobile phone using cost has been gone up for the reason that supplementary duty has been imposed. So usually this supplementary duty is imposed when the goods, taxable goods, or the goods which is considered are undesirable or kind of luxury type of goods. So as the supplementary duty is applicable in our phone charge, so you can think of that this service is a kind of luxury service. I do not know how it is luxury, and I also cannot categorize that for what purpose supplementary duty has been imposed on it. To me, what I believe simply that it is very easy to collect the indirect tax. No one can skip this indirect tax. That's why the tax authority is very is very likely to impose the indirect tax whenever it wants. And as this is usually imposable on the goods manufacturing in Bangladesh or the services provided in Bangladesh, but the condition is that the supplementary duty is applicable on those goods. So sometimes we have to confirm that supplementary duty is not applicable on all goods, but some goods which are very commonly used nowadays are subject to supplementary duty. And if it is such that some goods have been uh, imported in Bangladesh, not for consumption, not for use in Bangladesh, but for exporting again from Bangladesh. In that case, supplementary duty is not applicable on those goods. And if the goods are some kind of zero rated goods, on that in that case, zero rated, can you recall zero rated, that zero rated goods, the VAT is applicable there, but VAT rate is now 0%. On this kind of goods, no supplementary duty will be applicable. I'm just wanting to show that there is a list of goods where zero rated goods are there. I do not know that. Yeah. Okay. These are the goods has been mentioned, and these goods are the goods on which supplementary duty is applicable. So let me show you some examples on which supplementary duty is applicable. Say, you see these goods seem to be luxury goods to you. You see the list of goods on which supplementary duty are applicable. Supplementary duty is applicable.
Yes, sir.
These goods seem to be luxury to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you familiar with this good, apple cider vinegar?
Yes, sir.
This good is a luxury good nowadays. I do not think this good is a luxury good. And this good, I'm just taking an example in the name of cedar category. I mean the goods which are fermented drinks. So say for example, apple cider vinegar is very expensive in our country compared to its price in developed countries. So it has been expensive because 350% supplementary duty has been imposed on it. Got the reason? Okay, let me give you some other
Yes.
examples where we may need to have discussion. For example, cigarette. How much supplementary duties has been applied? 350%. So you can just imagine that uh, at least 3.5 times of the production price, manufacturer price, the price will be more higher to the uh, customers. Okay. Are you familiar with this? You have to participate. Otherwise, I do not like to continue giving more examples to you. Are you familiar with this kind of uh, tobacco, which is made in hand manually?
জি স্যার।
Okay. In UK, what I have seen, the cigarette is much expensive. So what people do, people buy filter separately, and people buy the tobacco separately. Okay. So when people buy the tobacco separately, what people do, people use the filter and they make their own cigarette by themselves at home. But in our country, I do not see it commonly. But in my staying in outside of Bangladesh, I saw this kind of practice. But in our country, what do you think? Should this be taxed differently from the handmade, from the cigarette? You are getting the same thing, but in different ways. Should they be taxed differently? I'm just asking for your opinion. Any opinion? Okay. On granites, this is applicable. The supplementary duty is applicable. Okay. What I'll just like to say that in import stage, we have seen that how the VAT is calculated or how VAT is imposed, and in different stages. And in case of supplementary duty applicability, we need to see that in case of import stage, how supplementary duty will be applicable, and in case of local goods, how supplementary duty is applicable or how the value is calculated. Can you recall that we did a calculation in previous class? We got the calculation for assessable value first, then on it we have calculated the customs duty we have calculated. Then after adding assessable value plus customs duty, and we have also calculated the regulatory duty, and finally what we calculated, supplementary duty. Can you recall that example? I showed the calculation of VAT, but before calculation of VAT there was also calculation for supplementary duty. So say for example assessable value is 100, so customs duty has been imposed, say for example 10%, and the regulatory duty has been imposed, say for example 20%. In that case, on which value supplementary duty will be imposed? Heavy plus CD plus RD, regulatory duty. So it is 100, it is 10, it is 20, and 130. On this value, the supplementary duty will be imposed. Supplementary duty will not be imposed on it. Supplementary duty will be imposed on the summation of these three: assessable value, customs duty, regulatory duty. In which case? In case of import stage. And in case of local stage, what can you do? I already showed you a calculation in case of buying internet pack in the very beginning of our today's class. Can you recall? How can we come up with the supplementary duty?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you
Yes, sir.
just need to apply that calculation to understand that how supplementary duty is calculated and how supplementary duty is subtracted to get the calculation for value of taxable supply. And if it is such that no consideration has been made when the goods is supplied, but the goods would be taxable if the consideration are available. So in that case, the rule is that we need to look for the fair market price for the goods, in which case the consideration has not been taken by the supplier. We need to come up with the fair market price. What is fair market price? The price at which two unrelated parties make transaction. Two unrelated. So there should not be no relation. Two unrelated parties make transaction, and we have several methods to determine the fair market price according to the taxes rules. We need to apply those, and if it is such that like input tax credit of VAT, there is benefit available which is known as decreasing adjustment for SD. Decreasing adjustment for SD. So before going for explanation, I'm just trying to give you the idea. If you like to increase the tax burden, that is the increasing adjustment of SD. When I'm saying the decreasing adjustment of SD, it is such that you already have paid SD when you are when you have imported. Now you want to reduce the tax burden. You want to reduce the tax burden. So how can you reduce the tax burden? There are some conditions in the Customs Act. If you follow that conditions and if you see those conditions are available for you, in that case, you can reduce the tax liability for what? For the supplementary duty, that is known as decreasing adjustment for supplementary duty. So we are not wanting to see the detail how it works. The idea is that we want to reduce the tax liability with respect to supplementary duty. And how supplementary duty is collected. In case of import stage, who is collecting the customs duty? Custom authority. Custom authority is collecting the custom duty. So the person or the business which is paying the customs duty, and if the supplementary duty is applicable at the same time when he is paying the customs duty, he has to clear the supplementary duty at the same time, import stage. But in case of local supply, supplementary duty or local stage, supplementary duty will become applicable when someone pays VAT. Just for example, in case of buying the internet pack from the mobile communications company, what we do or what they do, they collect the VAT and SD together from us, or they collect it separately. They collect it together, VAT, SD, these things are collected together. So this should be paid together also. But there will be separate return for each of them. And now we like to conclude our session just by highlighting that like the submission of income tax return, we also have submission of VAT return. Who will be responsible for submission of VAT return? Who has the registration for VAT? And sufficient information should be provided for VAT return and also for turnover. And the Mushok 9.1, 9.2. Can you recall that you showed you that there are forms available for income tax return and for VAT? Now VAT 2012, which are the VAT return form? One is 9.1, another one is 9.2. I just see 9.2 here. Okay. It is for what? You see the title? It is the return for turnover. So we have to fill out this form as a requirement of because we have the registration for paying turnover tax. And 9.2, VAT 9.2 is for what? Turnover tax, and VAT 9.1 is for VAT. And we have to provide this information which are very, we need to see it very detailed. Say for example, we need to be very clear in this kind of information, which is much familiar, and there are instruction here. Okay, so it is a long form. Okay, now the thing is that when it will be paid, or sorry, when it will be submitted. So there are tax period for VAT return separately. It is not for 30 November like the individual income tax payer. For VAT return, there are several deadline, and on each due date, it will be due, but it must be submitted within due date. But if anyone wants to extend the deadline, what it needs to do, for example, it is the submission date by the authority. In that case, if anyone wants to extend, he has to apply for extension minimum 7 days before the deadline. Minimum 7 days before the deadline. So on which date he needs to apply for extension? 22nd November, 7 days before. And if there is any mistake in the VAT submission return or VAT return, one can take the opportunity for correcting the errors, but he has to apply to the authority using the application form that I want to rectify the errors I made when I submitted the VAT return form. And in case of value added tax return and turnover tax return, and in case of withholding authority, the conditions are different. And if it has been found that the people who have taken the VAT registration are not complying the VAT rules properly, there will be penalty. And most of the time you see that VAT intelligence visits some entities and discover that they have not submitted their VAT return properly, or they have hidden their VAT information, or they have sale of 200 crore taka and collected VAT of 25 crore taka, but they have only paid 2 crore taka VAT. You see this kind of incident discovered commonly by the VAT intelligence. Yes, no? You are there with me, or I'm alone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you see this kind of incidents. Okay, yes. So if it has been found that someone is not, can you recall that I mentioned one rule that after having this amount of sales or revenue in the last 12 months, you have to apply for turnover registration, you have to apply for VAT registration. There was some the threshold limit based on which you need to take the registration. Based on this amount of revenue, you have to take the registration. If someone has crossed this threshold but has not taken the registration, he will be penalized for 10,000 taka. So it is one example. Another one example, just I have written here, if it has been found that someone is evading VAT, how much has been evaded here? Out of 25 crore, he has paid how much? Only 2 crore. How much has been evaded here? 23 crore. So the penalty is 46 crore, 2 times of the amount which has been evaded. So you will see this in the 30.14. So that is all about for VAT. We like to stop our